25. They've been told officially, legally, in every way that we have nothing to do with Project 25.
I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do.
Kamala Harris was all of us in that clip. Now, barely 2 weeks into his second term, Trump has signed a flurry of executive orders that actually align directly with the Project 2025 agenda, from freezing foreign aid to revoking security clearances and rolling back protections for trans people. And, firing all these people within the federal government. So how are Democrats planning to push back? Well, Democratic Congresswoman Yvette Clarke of New York is here. She is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. So let's ask her.
Congresswoman, good morning to you. Good to see you. That question from Simone, he told us who he was. Obviously, there are folks who chose not to listen. He has already implemented a number of things, gender, hiring, foreign aid freezes, things pulled right from Project 2025. How then do you fight back?
Well, the good thing about it is that Democrats are prepared. We've been studying Project 2025, the manifesto that was published. And we also serve on every committee of jurisdiction. We have our ranking members in subcommittees and full committees. So we're prepared. We're prepared to make sure that we do everything within our power to push back, to offer alternatives, and to make sure that the American people are educated and informed about how this will impact their lives if it goes into full effect.
Congresswoman, I find it a little bit ironic to have this White House put out a statement at the beginning of Black History Month claiming its interest in the cause and effort and progress of Black people, but then telling its government not to talk about it, not to celebrate it, not to do anything to commemorate it. You have a great piece in the New York Times by our friend David French in his op-ed on affirmative action for MAGA, noting Trump's cure for DEI isn't a true meritocracy, but rather affirmative action for the MAGA movement. Providing preferences for populists might be a natural consequence of Trump's political victory, but is not an improvement on the status quo. I noted in our last hour that DEI is the new N-word today, the way it's being used by a lot of folks in MAGA space and in this government. How do you see this assault on the telling of the story of African Americans over 400 years, segregation, integration, ultimately, advancements economically, all of these storylines that do level up the meritocracy that they supposedly want, but they deem to be insufficient because it has a black face or brown face attached to it?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because we know that diversity in every workplace has inured to the benefit of the United States of America. That we can speak to the world as a result of the diversity that we have in our nation. We need to maximize on all of the talent, the skill, and the expertise that we have resident in every community. But we know that Black communities have been disadvantaged since the moment that slaves were brought to our shores. We fought battles and made it possible through the civil rights movement for us to gain access. All we're saying through diversity, equity, and inclusion is let us continue to maximize. Let us make sure that in these spaces and places where we need the diversity of thought, of information, of expertise, that is resident there. I don't know why folks are fearing this because we live our lives this way each and every day. But the pushback, the retrenchment, the rolling back of civil rights, we will not go back. And so I don't know what is motivating these folks in terms of their attack and assault. Certainly, the CBC stands ready to work with whomever wants to advance the well-being, the economic well-being, the access to opportunities in our communities. But we are not going back.
So, Congresswoman, let's get specific here then, because I do think, in talking with a lot of folks across the country, they want to know, what are the elected officials doing? And the Congressional Black Caucus specifically, I know some months ago, engaged in a project where you all were talking to the CEOs and heads of corporations and doing asking audit, if you will, looking under the hood to see what's going on with some of their equity initiatives. One, are we going to see the results of those audits? But two, have you all had recent conversations with any of these CEOs? I'm thinking like Target, who have made announcements about rolling back policies. And then you've got folks like the CEO of Lowe's who said, look, we're going to just continue doing what we're doing. We feel like we're on the right path.
Yeah, we have our former chairman, Stephen Horsford, who actually has published the findings from our audit, if you will. We have a task force as well of members of the CBC who are circling back now. We are diving into that data. We are looking at the pronouncements that have been made by various corporations. And we're focused also on the federal enterprise and what's happening there, what's happening on college campuses. Across the board, these folks have made diversity, equity, and inclusion their target for getting in the way of the advancement of people of color, of white women, of veterans, of aging Americans, all of whom have benefited from the fact that we have diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only in the private sector, but in the public sector, as well as on college campuses. We will be holding folks accountable here.
Here's the problem, as you well know, is you're on such an asymmetric playing field, right? Everything they do is a crisis. They are currently trying to just absolutely flood the zone such that you have no choice but to play defense, which is ordinarily what a political party does in the minority when they're in the House. This feels different because it feels like you have a crisis of not only pushing back on all of the terrible things he is doing, from immigration to abortion rights, but also then having something else to sell the American people. What then becomes that something else?
Well, I think at the core of it, we know that economic opportunity is enjoyed and desired by everyone. And so our focus is, how do we work with colleagues where we can to advance that opportunity?
But where is that? I mean, where really, if you're living in a world where you have the Wall Street Journal editorial board, you have the Chamber, all saying this guy's economic policies are absolutely bananas, but you don't have Republicans in Congress who are willing to echo that same sentiment. Who are you left to conspire with?
Right. Well, we have to make it a point for the American people. Is at the end of the day, if their representatives are not representing their desires, they don't deserve to be representing them. And so education is important. Getting truth to the people is very important. They've been consuming a whole bunch of propaganda for the past 8 years, quite frankly, because, of course, Donald Trump never conceded that he lost the race for presidency. So we've got to do a lot of reprogramming, counter-programming, and giving access to the folks of our communities to the truth. And the truth is that they're in the crosshairs right now. And we've got to do everything we can to navigate them safely through this process.
Congresswoman, we've got a little less than a minute left, but I do want to ask you about your reaction, or what you think the congressional reaction should be to Elon Musk's team now having access to the Treasury's payment system, giving him unfettered access over the financial information of contractors, employees, Americans, citizens. Your thoughts?
Well, no one elected Elon Musk. And at the end of the day, there are privileged information within our databases in the federal government. I hope that we will be able to work with some of our legal friends to look at this very closely and examine whether, in fact, this is within the law. I don't believe it is. And if it is not, we need to make sure that we use every tool within our quiver, within the courts, to stop this, because this is unheard of and unprecedented, and should not be in the domain of a private citizen.